धीमहि यो यो नमः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नमः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति।
Ram 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 Raghuram, Ram 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 Jaya Ram, Ram 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 Raghuram, Ram 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 Jaya Ram. Oh Rama nila megha shyama, oh Rama nila megha shyama, oh Rama nila megha shyama, kodanda Rama, Rama nila megha shyama, kodanda Rama, Raghukula Visoma Parandhama Sarvabhauma, nila megha shyama. Raghu Ram 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 Raghu Ram, Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram, Raghu Ram 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 Raghu Ram, Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram. Talli Tandri Guruvu Nive, Talli Tandri Guruvu Nive, Todu Nida Nive, Talli Tandri Guruvu Nive, Todu Nida Nive, Sharaniyalla Palana Chese, Paranjodive, Tagu Ik Kalanu Ramaya, Dasalanu Brovakaraveya, Tagu Ik Kalanu Ramaya, Dasalanu Brovakaraveya, Teliya Tarava, Palukavashama, Nidu Mahima Raghava, Teliya Tarava, Palukavashama, Nidu Mahima Raghava. Oh Rama nila megha shyama, kodanda Rama, Raghukula Visoma Parandhama Sarvabhauma, nila megha shyama. Raghu Ram 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 Raghu Ram, Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram, Raghu Ram 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 Raghu Ram, Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram. Ratri Naina Nadini Chese Ni Divya Padamo, Ratri Naina Nadini Chese Ni Divya Padamo, Koti Naina Jnanini Chese Ni Namamu, Nidu Sari Devamulevaya, Ninnule Nammiti Rameya, Nidu Sari Devamulevaya, Ninnule Nammiti Rameya, Nidu Sharanam Papaharanam Maku Charanam Raghava, Nidu Sharanam Papaharanam Maku Charanam Raghava. Oh Rama nila megha shyama, oh Rama nila megha shyama, kodanda Rama, Raghukula Visoma Parandhama Sarvabhauma, nila megha shyama. Raghu Ram 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 Raghu Ram, Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram, Raghu Ram 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 Raghu Ram, Jaya Ram 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 Jaya 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 Ram.
Om Shri Ram Krishna Bhagavan ki jai, Pavana Sutta Hanuman ki jai, Shri Ambe Ambe Mata ki jai, Shri Siyavara Ramachandra ki jai.
Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram.
अम्बे अम्बे मात की जय। श्री सियावर रामचंद्र की जय।
Om Namo Narayanaya, dear sisters and brothers. We are blessed to present a video message by Most Revered Sri Swami Gautamanandaji Maharaj. Let us listen to the words of wisdom from our revered Maharaj.
Dear Ishtaprana Mataji and devotees of Sri Sarada Devi Ashram, Durban, I am happy to know that this center is observing Ram Naumi this year, as in other years, with great devotion and enthusiasm. Many devotees will be participating in it, which will also be available for viewing by many others online. Sri Ramachandra was one of the greatest of incarnations which the world has ever seen. He is considered as the seventh incarnation of Lord Vishnu by the Hindus, who was born on this earth to uphold moral values, the dharma, and yet set an example of an ideal human being, which he did by his superhuman acts of greatness and nobility. Rama was an ideal man in all respects. He was an ideal son, an ideal husband, an ideal king, an ideal brother, and an ideal friend. Above all, a divine person. Once, sage Valmiki, who was the first poet in Sanskrit language, who wrote the Ramayana, was visited by sage Narada, the famous Narada of the Indian Puranas, to whom Valmiki put the question as to who in the present world was virtuous, noble, truthful, determined in his deeds, adept, interested in the welfare of all beings, pleasant to look at, self-composed, and whom even the gods fear when he gets angry. To this, sage Narada replied that he had heard from Brahma, the creator himself, that such a man was existing at the present then. He was Sri Ramachandra of the Ikshvaku dynasty, who was self-controlled, resplendent, steadfast, moral, eloquent in his speech, glorious, with all good physical traits and auspicious signs upon him, righteous, engaged in the welfare of others, knower of the meaning of all scriptures, dear to all the worlds, gentle, level-headed, discriminating and distinguishing. Swami Vivekananda said about Sri Ramachandra, Ramachandra, the ancient idol of the heroic ages, the embodiment of truth, of morality, of as the ideal son, the ideal husband, and above all, the ideal king. This Ramachandra has been presented before us by the great sage Valmiki in the Sanskrit language. No language can be purer, none chaster, none more beautiful, and at the same time simpler than the language in which the great poet has depicted the life of Ramachandra. That is why Valmiki is called the Adi Kavi, the first and foremost poet of the Sanskrit language. It is once in countless ages that a human being of the caliber of Sri Ramachandra is born. Ramachandra is a special incarnation of the divine, the divinely ordained ideal for humanity. His divine qualities and divine acts are contemplated upon by thousands of men and women all over the world from generation to generation. Wherever the Hindu nation lives, Ramachandra is venerated and meditated upon. Sri Ramakrishna had himself said about Ramchandra. He who was born as Ramchandra and he who was born as Krishna has been born in this age as Sri Ram Krishna. He himself used to say about himself to his great disciples like Swami Vivekananda and others. The family deity of Sri Ram Krishna was Raghuvir, another name for Ramchandra. His father was named Khudiram. Again, Ramchandra is there in the father's name. Had a vision of Ramchandra once while he was resting in a field on his tour to some place, in which Ramchandra, in his dream, pointed out to a saligrama stone. You know, saligrama is representing God Vishnu. It is a stone. So, the Ramchandra in a dream, he pointed out a saligrama lying uncared for in a nearby field. He asked Khudiram to take it home and take proper care. And even today, that stone symbol is being worshipped in the village where Sri Ramakrishna was born, that is Kamarpukur. We know Sri Ramakrishna's sadhana of the mood of maternal affection towards the child Rama, which he did after being initiated by one great sadhaka, Jatadhari, in the mantra of Rama. Sri Ramakrishna received the mantra from him, followed it with all the meditation and japa, etc., and realized God as the child Rama. Again, Sri Ramakrishna had performed sadhana, assuming the mood of Hanuman towards Lord Ramchandra. Sri Ramakrishna experienced the culmination of that mood and also had a vision of Sita, the consort of Sri Ramachandra, one day while he was sitting in the Panchavati. Panchavati is the grove attached to Sri Ramakrishna's room at Dakshineshwar. He saw this vision with open eyes. Worship of Sri Ramachandra, reading his life story, chanting his name, contemplating on his divine form, all undoubtedly will help in one's spiritual development. Rama's life and his unparalleled character will inspire and guide human beings for ages to come. In him, we see divinity expressed in all its glory. My best wishes and blessings to all the monastics, volunteers, and devotees who are participating in this auspicious event. May the blessings of Sri Ramakrishna, who is none other than Sri Ramchandra himself, ever be upon you all, upon us all. Jai Ramakrishna. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
છે રખવાડા મારા, રામ છે રખવાડા સૌના, રામ છે રખવાડા રે, રામ છે રખવાડા. એ જી મોંઘો માનવ દેહ મળ્યો છે, મળે ન વારંવાર. એ જી મોંઘો માનવ દેહ મળ્યો છે, મળે ન વારંવાર. રામ ભજન કર પ્રભુ ભજન કર, રામ ભજન કર પ્રભુ ભજન કર, થાશે બેડો પાર રે, રામ છે રખવાડા મારા, રામ છે રખવાડા સૌના, રામ છે રખવાડા રે, રામ છે રખવાડા મારા, રામ છે રખવાડા સૌના, રામ છે રખવાડા રે, રામ છે રખવાડા. ઓમ શ્રી રામ કૃષ્ણ ભગવાન કી જય, પવન સુત હનુમાન કી જય, શ્રી અંબે અંબે માત કી જય, શ્રી સિયાવર રામચંદ્ર કી જય.
Om Ramaya Ramachandraya Ramabhadraya Vedhase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha. Om Namo Narayanaya, dear sisters and brothers. Today is the blessed day, as it is the birthday of Sri Ram and his brothers. God and his compassion are infinite. The Almighty Lord, who has no name and no form, condenses himself to take birth on earth for the good of humanity. God takes a human form to teach us how to manifest our divine qualities. All the virtues are in us, only they are covered by worldly thoughts. Just as clouds block our vision of the bright sun, unwanted thoughts and impressions prevent us from recognizing the presence of the Atman within. The characters of the Ramayana tell us what is right and what is wrong, what we should do to progress holistically, and what we should avoid to save ourselves from being destroyed. Today, vices like lust, anger, greed, and hatred are destroying the world, including many innocent people. Virtues like truthfulness, patience, compassion, and above all, devotion to God are important qualities to cultivate. The Ramayana teaches us why and how we should walk on the path of dharma. Without prayer or faith in God, we cannot live meaningfully. Sri Ramakrishna says, just as a lamp cannot burn without oil, so we too cannot live without God. Our very nature is to be pure and divine. Prayer and keeping holy company strengthen and empower us to live righteously. The story of the Ramayana is very popular, touching, and pertinent to today's world. The incidents may not be the same, but we learn the same lessons. the bane of hatred, jealousy, anger, fault-finding, and other vices. How is it that after thousands of years, we still remember characters like Bharat, Lakshman, Kevat, Jatayu, Vibhishan, and all those who sacrificed their lives for the good of the many? It is only because they were virtuous and always tried to help a situation that we remember them even today. It is good to be selfless and helpful. Swami Vivekananda says that even the least good done for others awakens the divine power within. The world today seems to revolve around I, me, and mine. We do everything to please ourselves without considering the consequences. Yet, if we are a little accepting, tolerant, and forgiving, if we are a little sensitive to the feelings of others, we can spread love and joy to all those around us. Scriptures like the Ramayana, Bhagavad Gita, and the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna remind us of the higher purpose of life, which is to know the divine within. The Atman, or the soul in us, is eternal. As it is the same as God, it has all the divine attributes of God. How do we recognize it or identify with it? It is through prayer, meditation, and by cultivating virtuous qualities and being in holy company. From time immemorial, our scriptures have pointed out that the repetition of God's holy name is the easiest way to purify our minds. The first author of the Ramayana, known as Ratnakar, was a highway robber. He was transformed into a saint just by chanting Sri Ram's name. He used to earn his livelihood by stealing and attacking passers-by that went through the forest. One day, the great sage Narada happened to pass that way, and, as usual, Ratnakar held him up, saying, "Give me all that you have, otherwise you will not live." The great sage was calm. He smiled and said, "I am a monk who has nothing. But tell me, why do you attack innocent people?" Ratnakar replied, "I do this to support and feed my family." The sage Narada asked, "Do you know what sin you are incurring by your evil conduct? What will happen to your soul? Who will save you when you leave this world? Do you think that your family will share the burden of your wrong deeds?" Ratnakar replied, "Surely they will. I attack and rob people for their sake. They will be happy to come to my rescue." Sage Narada then said, "All right, please go and ask them." Ratnakar was clever. He tied the sage to a tree so that he does not run away and went home to ask his family if they will support him. He felt that every member, especially his mother and wife, will gladly agree to share his load. He was stunned to hear that no one was willing to share his problems. Ratnakar felt disappointed and returned to Naradji. He realized that he alone will be punished for all his vices. He alone is answerable for all his misdeeds. Ratnakar fell at the feet of the sage and asked him how he could rectify his errors. Is there a way out of this dilemma? The wise sage Narada advised him thus: "Do not be afraid. Do what I ask you to do, but please ensure that you do not repeat your bad habits. Repeat the holy name of Sri Ram. Say Ram, Rama, Rama. Ratnakar could not chant the Lord's name. Instead, he said, Mara, 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 meaning kill, hit, and fight. Yet, as he sincerely chanted Mara, 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 it became Ram, 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 and he became transformed. Ratnakar forgot the world and became totally absorbed in the thought of Sri Ram. As he continued to repeat the Lord's name, days and months passed, and an anthill grew over him. By God's grace, he evolved into a saint, a seer of truth. He now became known as Valmiki and was the first to write the Ramayana. Scene after scene of Sri Ram's life was revealed to him during meditation, and he thus wrote the entire Ramayana. Swami Vivekananda says, ignorance is the cause of all the pain and suffering that we see in this world. If we could spend more time in learning about our true divine selves, we will realize that the same God is in everyone. So there will be less hostility. Valmikiji's life teaches us that we have this divine power in us, but we have forgotten it. By repeating God's name and being righteous, we can awaken this power and be wise. Our festivals remind us that we are not the body, mind, or intellect. We are the Atman. Our greatest difficulty is in controlling the mind, whose very nature it is to go outwards. The Kathopanishad says that the senses have been made to go outwards. We want to experience the external world, see what is beautiful, touch what is pleasant, and hear sweet words and music. Hence, we cannot see the divine within. It is rare to find a wise person who withdraws his mind and senses from external objects and turns his gaze within to behold the Atman, just as Ratnakar had done. We have to sit calmly and train our minds to be relaxed in God thought. Our scriptures guide us on how to meditate effectively. Some of the methods include looking at the pictures of gods and goddesses, especially our Ishtadevata or chosen ideal. Others appreciate scenes from nature, like flowers, waterfalls, forest scenes, or the blue ocean, which reveal God's unique glory. Listening to divine chants, prayers, hymns, and devotional songs is also very useful. All of these help us to focus our minds on God, and these are very stimulating. Among the many melodious hymns that we have in the Ramayana, a powerful hymn is the Aditya Hridaya Stotram. It is found in the Yuddhakand of Valmikiji's Ramayana. The hymn is dedicated to Surya Bhagavan, the sun. It was chanted by Sri Ram himself before he destroyed Ravan. Words cannot express the importance and the benefit of chanting this hymn daily. One can listen to these soul-stirring hymns via the internet today. People find great satisfaction as the hymns are well presented with beautiful illustrations. The visible power of God is seen in the sun. Hence, this hymn is significant. Let us read the meaning of verses 4 and 5 of the Aditya Hridaya Stotram. This holy hymn dedicated to Surya Bhagwan, the sun, will result in destroying all enemies and bring you victory and unending supreme bliss. This hymn is supreme and is a guarantee of complete prosperity. It is the destroyer of sin, anxiety, anguish, and is the bestower of long life. Having faith in these words, we can chant or listen to it regularly. It helps us to feel God's protection. Shri Krishna Bhagavan says in the Bhagavad Gita that just as the one sun illumines the world, the Atman or the soul illumines the body. This implies that the soul enables us to walk, talk, be active, and do everything. Thus, the essence of the hymn is that since the Atman is within us, all power is within us. Verse 20 of the hymn says, salutations to this transcendental Atman that dispels darkness, drives away all fear, and destroys all foes. Salutations also to the annihilator of the ungrateful and to the Lord of all the stellar bodies. But we have to remember that our enemies are the vices within. The Aditya Hridaya Stotram uplifts our minds and saves us from pain during difficult times. It fills us with immense faith and cleanses us of our misdeeds. Our revered Guruji, Sri Swami Shivapadananji Maharaj, used to say that from ancient times, Hindus have worshipped Surya Bhagwan by offering water to him every morning. He explained that as we offer the water, we must pray to Surya Bhagwan thus: O Lord, you absorb the water from the ocean, the rivers, the lakes, and even from unclean places. You convert it into clouds and then send down fresh, clean, cool water for the benefit of all of creation. As we offer this water to you, O Lord, we entreat you to take away our vices and negativity and transform them. Fill us with strength, courage, and patience so that we can progress. Please shower auspiciousness on us and remove any prevailing inauspiciousness. As we pray each day, our faith deepens and we feel strong. Since both light and heat are inherent characteristics of the sun, we can energize ourselves mentally and physically by reciting the sacred hymn every day. May Sri Ram take birth or be awakened in our hearts so that we can live in love, peace, and harmony. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Nanyaspriha Raghupate Hridaye Asmadiye Satyam Padami Cha Bhavan Akhilantaratma Bhaktim Prayacha Raghupungaha Nidharame Tamadidosha Rahitam शत्रुघ्न हनुमत समेत श्रीरामचंद्र परब्रह्मणे नमः।
जोग लगन ग्रह बार तिथि सकल भये अनुकूल चर अरु अचर हर्ष जुत राम जन्म सुख मूल श्री सियावर रामचंद्र की पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। श्री अम्बे अम्बे मात की जय। चौपाई श्री राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय जय राम जय जय राम। नौमी तिथि मधुमास पुनीता शुक्ल पक्ष विजित हरि प्रीता मध्य दिवस अति शीतल घामा पावन काल लोक विश्रामा श्री राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय जय राम। शीतल मंद सुरभि वह पाऊ हर्षित सुर संतन मन चाऊ वन कुसुमित गिरि गण मणिहारा सबहि सकल सहितामृत धारा श्री राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय जय राम। सो अवसर विरंचि जब जाना चले सकल सुर साजी विमाना गगन विमल संकुल सुर जूथा गावहि गुण गंधर्व भरूथा श्री राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय जय राम। हर्षहि सुमन सुअंजलि साजी गह गहि गगन तुंदुभि बाजी स्तुति करहि नाग मुनि देवा बहुविधि लावहि निज निज सेवा श्री राम जय जय राम 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 श्री राम जय जय राम। दोहा सुर समूह विनती करी पूजे निज निज धाम जग निवास प्रभु प्रगटे अखिल लोक विश्राम श्री सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। श्री अम्बे अम्बे मात की जय। भय प्रकट कृपाला दीन दयाला कौसल्या हितकारा हर्षित महतारी मुनि मनहारी अद्भुत रूप विचारी लोचन अभिरामा तनु घन श्यामा निज आयुध भुजचारी भूषण वनमाला नयन विशाला शोभा सिंधु करारी कह दुई कर जोड़ी स्तुति तोरी तेरी विधि करो अनंता माया गुण ज्ञानातीत अमाया वेद पुराण भनंता करुणा सुख सागर सब गुण आगर श्री गावहि श्रुति संता सोम महित लागी जन असुरागी भय प्रकट श्रीकांता ब्रह्मांड निकाया निर्मित माया रोम रोम प्रतिवेद कहे मम उरसो बासी यह उपहासी सुनत धीर मति धीर न रहे उपजा जब ज्ञाना प्रभु मुस्काना चरित बहुत विधि कीन चहे तही कथा सुहाई मातु बुझाई जेहि प्रकार सुत प्रेमल है माता पुनि बोली सोमति डोली प्रजहु तात यह रूपा की जैसी सुलीला अति प्रिय शीला यह सुख परमनूपा सुनि वचन सुजाना रोदन ठाना होई बालक सुरभूपा यह चरित जे गावहि हरिपद पावहि तेन परहि भवकूपा दोहा विप्रवेणु सुरसंतहित लीन मनुज अवतार निज इच्छा निर्मित तनु माया गुण गोपाल श्री सियावर रामचंद्र की जय पवन सुत हनुमान की जय श्री अम्बे अम्बे मात की जय
चौपाई श्री राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय राम सुनि सुरुदन परम प्रिय बानी संभ्रम जय आई सब रानी हर्षित जहत हताई दासी आनंद मगन सकल पुरवासी श्री राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय जन्म सुनिकाना मानहु ब्रह्मानंद समाना परम प्रेम मन पुलक शरीरा चाहत उठन करत मति धीरा श्री राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय जय राम जाकर नाम सुनत शुभ होई मोरे गृह आवा प्रभु सोई परमानंद पूरी मन राजा कहाँ बोलाई बजावहु बाजा श्री राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय जय राम गुर वशिष्ठ कह गयो हंकारा आए द्विजन सहित नृप द्वारा अनुपम बालक देख निजाई रूप राशि गुण कही न सिराई श्री राम जय जय राम 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 दोहा नंदी मुख सराध करी जात करम सबकी हाट कधेनु बसन मणि नृप विप्रन कहरी श्री सियावर रामचंद्र की जय पवन सुत हनुमान की जय श्री अम्बे मात की जय।
सुखदाता है एक ही नाम सुमिरन से ही बनते काम जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम सुखदाता है एक ही नाम सुमिरन से ही बनते काम जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम राम नाम की अद्भुत माला जलधर नभ का वही रखवाला जपते जो श्री राम को मन से वही पहनते सुख की माला सच्चे सुख का एक ही धाम जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम जीवन नैया पार लगा दे सबकी बिगड़ी वही बना दे चरण शरण में आने वाले मन चाहे भला वैभव पाते भजले प्राणी एक ही नाम जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम श्री भगवन की महिमा न्यारी हरि वो पल में पीड़ा सारी देखो उसके सन्मुख जाकर वो राजा है जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम, जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम। सुखदाता है एक ही नाम, सुमिरन से ही बनते काम। जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम, जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम, जय रघुनंदन जय सिया राम। ओम श्री राम कृष्ण भगवान की जय, पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। श्री अम्बे अम्बे मात की जय। श्री सियावर रामचंद्र की जय।
ओम जय जगदीश हरे स्वामी, जय जगदीश हरे। भक्त जनों के संगत, भक्त जनों के संगत क्षण में दूर करे। ओम जय जगदीश हरे। जो ध्यावे फल पावे, दुख विनसे मन का। स्वामी दुख विनसे मन का। सुख संपत्ति घर आवे, सुख संपत्ति घर आवे। कष्ट मिटे तन का। ओम जय जगदीश हरे। मात पिता तुम मेरे, शरण गहूँ किसकी। स्वामी शरण गहूँ किसकी। तुम बिना और न दूजा, तुम बिना और न दूजा। आस करो जिसकी। ओम जय जगदीश हरे। तुम पूर्ण परमात्मा, तुम अनंतर्यामी। स्वामी तुम अनंतर्यामी। पार ब्रह्म परमेश्वर, पार ब्रह्म परमेश्वर। तुम सबके स्वामी। ओम जय जगदीश हरे। तुम करुणा के सागर, तुम पालन करता। स्वामी तुम पालन करता। मैं सेवक तुम स्वामी, मैं सेवक तुम स्वामी। कृपा करो भरता। ओम जय जगदीश हरे। तुम हो एक अगोचर, सबके प्राणपति। स्वामी सबके प्राणपति। इस विधि मिलो दया में, इस विधि मिलो दया में। तुमको मैं कुमति। ओम जय जगदीश हरे। दीन बंधु दुख हरता, तुम रक्षक मेरे। स्वामी तुम रक्षक मेरे। करुणा हस्त बढ़ाओ, करुणा हस्त बढ़ाओ। शरण पड़ा तेरे। ओम जय जगदीश हरे। विषय विकार मिटाओ, पाप haro deva, Swami papa haro deva, Shraddha bhakti badhao, Shraddha bhakti badhao, Sanatan ki seva, Om Jai Jagadish Hare. Swami Jai Jagadish Hare, Bhakta Janon ke Sankat, Bhakta Janon ke Sankat, Ksana mein dura kare, Om Jai Jagadish Hare.
Dear sisters and brothers, words cannot express our deep appreciation to Most Revered Maharaj for showering unconditional grace on us. Revered Maharaj's divine wisdom always motivates and guides us forward. We are ever grateful to Revered Maharaj for Maharaj's love and inspiration. Om Namo Narayanaya, dear sisters and brothers. It is now the auspicious time when the Lord took birth. Let us sit calmly and feel the presence of Sri Ram in our hearts. Today's chanting from the Ramayana was on the birth of Sri Ram. It is very melodious and soothing. Let us read the meaning of some of the verses that we were chanting. When Lord Brahma perceived that the time of Sri Ram's birth had approached, all the gods came out in their aerial cars. The gracious and compassionate Lord appeared. The thought of his marvelous form, which stole the heart of sages, filled Mother Kaushalya with joy. His body was as dark as a cloud and was the delight of all eyes. Adorned with jewels and a garland of flowers and endowed with large eyes, he was an ocean of beauty. Joining both her palms, the mother said, "O infinite Lord, how can I praise you? The Vedas proclaim that every pore of your body contains multitudes of universes brought about by Maya. that such a lord stayed in my womb. This amusing story staggers the mind of even men of wisdom. When the revelation came upon the mother, the Lord smiled. He would perform many a sportive act. Therefore, he encouraged her by telling her the charming account of her previous birth so that she might love him as her own child. The mother felt peace at heart. She said, "Give up the superhuman form and indulge in childlike play, which are so dear to a mother's heart. The joy that comes from such sports is unequaled in every way." Hearing these words, the all-knowing Lord, who is immortal, became an infant and began to cry. Those who sing this poem, says Tulsidas-ji, attain to the abode of Sri Hari and never fall into the well of mundane existence. On hearing the most pleasing sound of the baby's cries, all the queens came quickly. Maidservants ran helter-skelter in great delight, and the people of the city were transported with joy. When the tidings of the birth of a son reached King Dashrath's ears, he was drowned, as it were, in the ecstasy of absorption into Brahma. With a mind saturated with the highest love, and with a body thrilling all over with joy, he sought to rise, while attempting to recover his senses. The same Lord, whose very name brings blessings when it even reaches one's ears, has arrived at my house, he said to himself, and the thought filled him with supreme joy. Sending for musicians, he said, "Play on your instruments." The preceptor Vashishta was also summoned, and he called at the palace door with a train of brahmanas. They all went and gazed upon the peerless baby, who was an embodiment of beauty and possessed excellences more than one could tell. Beautiful chanting, beautiful meaning, awakening the divine power in us to remember the Lord, to remember the compassion of God who takes on a form for the sake of his devotees. Let us remember that Sri Ram is seated in our hearts eternally. Let us call on him every day, and he is sure to bless us. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरि ॐ तत्सत् जय श्री गुरु महाराज की जय, महामाई की जय, स्वामी जी महाराज की जय, गंगा मात की जय, महावीर स्वामी जी की जय, सर्व ऋषि मुनियों की जय, पार्वती पतये हर हर महादेव की जय। श्री सियावर